Audi are yet to announce their choice for second driver from 2025 onwards, and while there have been talks that Bottas' signature is now just a matter of time, it now seems like the situation has deteriorated a bit and youngsters will be given a bit more attention from the German squad. Although there might be issues with the competitiveness from 2026 onwards, as Binotto stated, that doesn't mean Audi won't focus on the best possible lineup, as they've already achieved their goal of having an experienced and German native driver in at least one of their cars. But with so many options on the line, who is the favourite to land the seat next to Hulkenberg, and more importantly, is Bottas' career in danger? It's safe to say that Audi is currently holding up the majority of the F1 world in tension, because they're the only team on the grid to not have the 2025 lineup fixed. If we are to ignore Racing Bulls, who haven't given Lawson a contract for the next campaign just yet. Be that as it may, the past couple of months have been very interesting to watch, because there were a lot of young drivers who've shown a lot of potential, including Colapinto, who scored 4 points in his second race for Williams, and that is why his current team principal, James Vowles, is actively pursuing a seat for him from 2025 onwards. Even though Colapinto is a product of Williams Academy, the Argentinian driver knew the circumstances under which he was going to replace Sargent. His seat is taken by Sainz from 2025 onwards, and 3, of course, doesn't fit into 2, unfortunately, in this sport. But nevertheless, this was the opportunity of his lifetime to prove that he has what it takes to be a Formula One driver. And when talking about this to a greater extent, Vowles said, "For transparency, we are in conversations to see if Sauber is a route for him, where he could be on the grid with this team for 2 years. In a scenario in which he would be our reserve driver, he'd be ready to stand by should anything happen. What I have learned in the last 12 months is that the F1 driver situation is not over. It's good for us, we're signed, but watch next year. I think you're going to see a little bit more movement. There is more opportunity out there as well at the same time, so having one of the best drivers on the grid available, I think, will be a strength." While Vowles tends to speak a bit too highly of his drivers, considering the fact that he said the Williams 2025 lineup is going to be the best one on the grid, he hasn't missed his point about Colapinto. This is a young driver who has proven that he has what it takes in order to deliver results in a car that was deemed to be underperforming, and in just one race he helped Williams climb 1 position in the Constructors' Championship, which could be a difference over $10 million in cash prize money. But as we already know, Sauber and Audi are looking at many options, and while Colapinto is now the only driver who is showing what he is capable of, that doesn't mean the German squad is not ready to think outside the box, with Gabriel Bortoletto also emerging as a very serious candidate to be signed next to Hulkenberg. The Brazilian driver is currently managed by Fernando Alonso, and the 2-time world champion stated that the young McLaren protege has everything it takes to be a successful F1 driver, as he emerged as a potential candidate once Binotto took over Audi. This is when Bottas stated that the talks have come to a halt because of the massive change in Audi's leadership, which further caused some headaches that the Finn would much rather avoid than deal with. But nevertheless, here we are, and as all things stand, Sauber has more youth to pick from than experience if they are going to go down that route, and Bortoletto is currently leading the F2 Championship, which is also bolstering his chance to make an F1 debut from 2025 onwards, with a team that could be fighting for points occasionally, because right now they are definitely the worst team on the grid. This is also hindering the process made by Bottas, who feels like he is not treated fairly in the drivers' market because of his inability to score points with such a car. Nevertheless, the threat from the young drivers is real, and when talking about Bortoletto's future in Formula One as well as the nature of the Brazilian driver, Alonso said, "Gabriel is an incredible talent, but at the same time Brazil has a lot of history in Formula One, a lot of background drivers and maybe some pressure there there as well. We need to give Gabriel his time as well. His time in Formula 1 will arrive. We don't need to take any shortcut that can compromise the development of his talent. He needs to get in at the right time and when he is totally prepared and in the right team and right environment. That is the biggest challenge, to combine the pressure and the motivation to get Formula 1 to the common sense when it's the best time. This statement makes us feel like Bortoletto is not as hot of a pick as we would originally think, with drivers like Schumacher and Colapinto being in the mix of the youngsters who could steal the seat away from him. But knowing how competitive and close this sport is, every opportunity matters, and when addressing rumours that Bortoletto might be out of contention for the Sauber seat, Alonso continued, "No, that is not the case. I think the team has to make some decisions, and for sure, Gabriel is very appealing for everybody at the moment. There are never problems in Formula 1, despite Gabriel being a McLaren junior. Everything can be adjusted. And whenever there is an empty seat in Formula 1, the name of Mick Schumacher needs to be added into the mix, and this time, it seems like the German roots of Michael's son could play a huge role in his future in the sport. Of course, his ending in Formula 1 wasn't as positive as we would have hoped for, but it turns out that Haas made the right decision, as we see where Hulkenberg has now taken them in 2024 and why he was the first candidate that Audi wanted to bring to the team. But now there are reports that the first wish of Audi to have an all-German lineup has been sparked up again, with Mick being given a second chance to prove what he is made of, and that he wasn't in the sport just because of his father's success. After all, he was a Formula 3 and 2 champion, but the latest comments from James Vowles saying that he isn't special as a driver, and that was the primary reason they didn't consider him as a replacement for Sargent, would definitely hurt Schumacher's future in the sport. But the fact that Audi, or more precisely Sauber, won't be competitive in 2025 has more or less opened the door for the team to try out someone who is less attractive on the market in order to see where their opportunities lie. And when talking about this situation, Helmut Marko said that Mick would be a great option for the German outlet. Furthermore, the veteran Austrian said, "I think the Audi car will certainly not be a winning car next year. That means there would have been no pressure on either Audi or Schumacher. It will be a good comparison with Nico Hulkenberg, and if his performance isn't right, you can always make a change for 2026. I don't know exactly, but if the situation is really that Bottas gets the chance, then the whole thing is even more incomprehensible to me. I think if Schumacher doesn't get this seat, then the Formula 1 story is over for him." Whether you like Marko or not, he is making a valid point about Mick's future, because if he doesn't utilise this opportunity, it's very unlikely he'll find another one in his career now that there are plenty of young talents to pick from. And at the end of the day, Sauber are still in talks with Bottas, who could end the chances for these youngsters and prove that he has what it takes to build a team from scratch, especially after Binotto's statement that Audi won't be competitive in 2026 due to their expected engine deficit compared to the rest of the grid. The Finn said that the discussions he initially started with Andreas Seidel have now continued with Binotto, and from the time they were rivals in Mercedes and Ferrari respectfully, Binotto understands that it's much better to have Bottas on your side rather than against you. The opportunities are far and wide, and Sauber needs to make a decision sooner rather than later and show that their choice of driver will have the full trust from the team to nudge them in the right direction. Who do you think will sit next to Hulkenberg from 2025 onwards? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to check out the video that's appearing on your screen right now.